Hello, 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 and welcome to the Cloud English Podcast. My name is Luke. It is Friday, November 1st, 1999, and it's great to have you today. We're going to be talking about pronunciation, specifically tone and stress, intonation and stress. These are very important when it comes to speaking English naturally. And if you don't know how tone works, for example, sometimes you can be misunderstood or you may misunderstand things. So we're going to get to that first. A few other things. If you haven't done so already, please support the podcast by hitting the like button and subscribing. It's a very simple, small, tiny little thing you can do, which makes a big difference. So I really, really appreciate that. Please and thank you. It means a lot. You can also check out a free course, of course, in the links in the description, and get 30% off the yearly membership, but monthly, paid monthly. So you can try it out, get access to all of the courses on the website. Again, that's 30% off, I think. A pretty good deal. A great deal, I might even say. All right. That's basically it. Thank you for being here. I hope you're having a fantastic week. If you're watching on Friday, well, happy Friday. If later, whatever day it is, happy that. Now, before we get into pronunciation and stress, something just happened yesterday, and I want to quickly check it out if that's okay. So permit me, and I'm kind of really exploring this for the first time. I haven't done much on it. I want to take a look at the new web mode, search the web, in ChatGPT. Haven't played with it much, so this is kind of me checking it out, and we're just going to do this for a minute, and then we're going to get into intonation and stress. So let's keep it on topic. Let's say I'm going to turn on web mode, and you get some recommendations. Trending, Mark Cuban, Daylight Savings Time, Play Store, Heidi Klum, Halloween 2024. Well, what's that all about? Heidi Klum, Halloween 2024? What do we get here? Oh, okay. Heidi Klum must have dressed up like E.T. That's cool. We get some images. Renowned for her elaborate Halloween costumes, transformed into E.T., the extraterrestrial, for her 2024 Halloween celebration. Wow, nice one. That's pretty creepy. So this is kind of new, right? Being able to get recent information in ChatGPT, up-to-date stuff. What is... Who is going to win the 2024 election according to the polls and betting markets? That's what I want to know. So I'm just typing basically web searches, complex web searches into ChatGPT. So I have they provide sources here at the bottom. As of November 1st, the U.S. presidential race between Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump is exceptionally close. National polls indicate a near tie, with Harris holding a slight lead in some surveys. 538's polling average shows Harris at 48.1% and Trump at 46.7%. Okay. All right. What about betting markets? Betting markets reflect this tight competition. Platforms like Polymarket and Predictit show Trump with a higher probability of winning, ranging from 56% to 62%. Interactive Brokers Forecast Trader platform has seen Harris odds rise from 38% to 44%. Okay, useful. And we can click on these sources here, and that'll just take us to the website, I think. Cool. Or we can look at all of the sources here as well. All right. Let's try this. Let's try one more thing. What important events happened in 1999? I should know that because it is 1999. Okay. Use ChatGPT for every search. Download the Chrome extension to switch your default search engine to ChatGPT and get instant answers from trusted sources. Wow. I will maybe check that out later. Let's see. What happened in 1999? Introduction of the euro. On January 1st, the euro was established. Wow. Impeachment of President Bill Clinton. The U.S. Senate trial for President Bill Clinton's impeachment began on January 7th. Kosovo War. NATO commenced the aerial bombing campaign against Yugoslavia on March 24th. Mars Polar Lander Mission. Y2K concerned, I remember that. As the year ended, global attention focused on the Y2K bug, a computer flaw feared to cause widespread disruptions as the date transitioned to January 1st. I remember that very well, even though I was just a little boy. I think I was about 12 years old. The Columbine High School Massacre. I remember that as well. Sopranos. Debut of the TV show Sopranos. Dow Jones. Okay, interesting. Some interesting stuff happening in 1999. Okay, let's get into word stress. Let's stop fooling around with this nonsense and get into our main business. Our main business is what? Our main business is stress, word stress. So what is stress? First, let's define it. Stress, in pronunciation, how we speak, is emphasis on a word. That may mean saying it a bit louder and perhaps stretching it out more. The opposite of stress would be an unstressed syllable, for example, the schwa sound, where you say a word like tomato. The unstressed syllable would be t. That sound is called the schwa sound, and that syllable or piece of a word, phonetic piece of a word, is unstressed. Okay? But now, whole words can also be stressed in a sentence. Listen to what I just said. Whole words can also be stressed in a sentence. Now, when it comes to word stress in sentences, there's a bit more flexibility and creativity there. You kind of choose what you want based on what you're trying to say and emphasize. And sometimes it's very important to do it correctly so that people understand you. We'll look at some examples. When it comes to syllable stress, I think there's less flexibility. There's kind of standard pronunciations of things, and if you don't say it correctly, it's a bit weird. So you have to learn the standard stress of syllables in words. And a classic example would be the differences between adjectives and nouns and verbs for word stress, especially for two-syllable words. So if you have a two-syllable word, which would be you have to say it with the right stress on the right syllable so that we know what kind of word it is. Now, this is not a universal rule for every single two-syllable word, but it is, in general, true. And we'll look at two classic examples. So here's the noun of the word record. Okay? record. And this should be pronounced, let me get my pen out here, record, if it is a noun. Record. Record. And you could use it in many situations. I keep records of everything. Or perhaps you have one of those vinyl records. So where is your record collection? Record, record, record. But if you're doing the activity, right, of maybe recording your voice, or perhaps maybe writing something down in a meeting, then you record. Now notice how that first syllable suddenly loses its stress, and becomes a schwa sound. And the second syllable is now stressed. Cord. So when you stress a syllable, you say its letters more clearly, especially the vowels. Record. Curd. So we're not really stressing the curd, and so we can't hear each sound as well, right? Whereas you can hear or you hear the clear E sound. But if it's record, then the you can't really hear it. It's the schwa, and then core, or. Each sound is very clear, especially the vowel sound. So here, record, cord. You can record. And then, by the way, it's also true for adjectives. So we put noun and adjectives into one category and verbs in the other. So a classic example would be present. Now, present could be a noun or an adjective. A present is a gift. She received a beautiful present for her birthday. Present for her birthday. My birthday was yesterday. And I think I didn't receive anything. I think this might be the first year where I didn't receive any gifts. I just realized that. Well, it's a sad day. Although, I will say, my wife made an amazing meal. Beautiful, delicious, tasty meal. So, that's a present. So, this, very clearly, to let us know it's a noun. Now, if it's an adjective, Shirley, present. So you're here. That's your status, used as an adjective, right? The present situation. Present, used as an adjective. Okay? So when we want to use it as a verb, we're talking in front of people. I'm maybe presenting something right now. I'm speaking to you about a topic. I'm showing you something. I'm explaining something. I'm going to present important information. I'm going to present important information. So you have to make sure you get that right. There are a lot of these two-syllable words that could be nouns or adjectives or verbs, and in most cases they follow a common stress rule. And again, if you don't say them correctly, people can actually get confused. Now, before we move on to talk about word stress in sentences, I want to show you something from a book that I often read to my son. So here is the book. You can see the B is see-through. It's called Dr. Seuss's ABC. And it goes big A, little a, what begins with A? Aunt Annie's alligator, A. And he always goes, when I say, A, he goes, he thinks it's really funny. Now, I want to show you one specific one. Dr. Seuss, who I can strongly recommend, if you're going to read to your kids, is kind of a master of cadence and rhythm, sort of that poetic flow of the English language. I believe a great way to not just learn the language, but get the feeling for it, right? The cadence and the rhythm and how it can be playful. A, B, C, D, E, ear, egg, elephant, E, right? And the drawings are pretty funny. He's got a very interesting style. But, I mean, these books are iconic. I grew up with these. And I think they're still quite popular. Now, there is one specific one that I want to touch on, and it's this one. Now, the first time I read this, actually, I'll admit, the first few times I read this, I read it wrong. So you have a pajamas that are pink, you have a policeman, and he's in a pail, and you have Papa here, and Papa is also in a pail. And I read it like this: painting pink pajamas, policeman in a pail. Policeman in a pail. Peter Pepper's puppy, and now Papa's in the pail. I read it, I think, now I naturally read it correctly. Now Papa's in a pail. I think I read it like that. Yeah, painting pink pajamas, policeman in a pail. Peter Pepper's puppy, and now Papa's in a pail. So if you stress Papa's in a pail, then it's weird because you have policeman in a pail, Papa's in a pail. If you have policeman in a pail, Papa's in a pail, then it's odd because you're saying pail twice. Why are we saying the policeman's in a pail and Papa's in a pail? But then kind of realized, that's because that's not how it's meant to be said. The way that it's meant to be said is there's a new thing that's happening that's novel and interesting, that someone else is in a pail now, and to stress who is in the pail, I need to stress the name of the person in the pail, not the pail. Whereas when I said it with the policeman, I'll stress the interesting thing that the policeman is in, which is a pail. So policeman in a pail, policeman in a pail, policeman in a pail. But when I want to say very clearly that the interesting thing now happening is that there's a different person in the pail, then I will say, Papa's in a pail, right? So I'm choosing the stress of the word based on the important emphasis. What is important to emphasize? Again, for the first one, it's important to emphasize, well, there's a policeman, but who cares? The policeman is something weird about the policeman. He's in a pail, so we stress that, right? Painting pink pajamas, policeman in a pail. Peter Pepper's puppy, and now, we already know about the pail, boring, right? We know about it. What's new now is that it's Papa who's in the pail, right? Peter Pepper's puppy, and now Papa's in the pail. Papa's in the pail. Papa's in the pail. Now it sounds natural. Something always sounded weird to me when I said it the other way. Painting pink pajamas, policeman in a pail. Peter Pepper's puppy, and now Papa's in the pail. Oh, Papa's in the pail. Oh, okay. So that's just a very small example to highlight the importance of saying words with the right stress in the right situation. And you kind of have to identify that with your intuition. You have to just get a feeling for that. So here's a kind of classic example of the same sentence many times with a different stress on words for each sentence. So this one would be, I never said she stole my money, meaning that maybe other people said it. It wasn't me. Okay, that's what that means. I never said she stole my money. Okay, so that's emphasizing the fact that it didn't happen, or maybe something focusing on whether or not it did, right? I never said she stole my money. This would be stressing the idea that maybe I hinted at it, I alluded to it, I texted someone about it, maybe I believe it, and I believe it, but I never actually said it out loud, right? So I'm trying to emphasize that it wasn't spoken out of my mouth. I never said she stole my money, so there maybe somebody else stole my money. It wasn't her, it was somebody else. I never said she stole my money. Maybe she borrowed it. Maybe she, maybe she has money and I gave it to her as a gift or whatever, right? I'm emphasizing that I never accused her of stealing. I never said she stole my money. Maybe she stole someone else's money. And you could say also, I never said she stole my money. She stole something else, not my money. So there's a kind of thing that people can assume based on the stress in the sentence. That doesn't mean that you can only stress one word in a sentence. That's not what that means. You can stress multiple words, and sometimes it's not so clear where this must be stressed or this must be stressed. Sometimes it is creative choice where you're choosing which word to stress based on what you would like to focus on when you speak, right? If I say, I think this sounds very interesting. Okay, what does that mean when I compare it to, I think this sounds very interesting? What if I stress both? Well, what does that do? It might change the flavor of it, what people might feel when they hear it, right? It's not always a clear, now it means this instead of that. but it just changes the connotation, the texture, right? The feeling people get when they hear it. So on one level, you have the stress of syllables, and in the stress of syllables, you kind of have to learn how to say it. Then you have word stress, which can be very important and can cause misunderstandings if you don't stress the correct word when you're speaking. And then you have this creative kind of freedom to focus on what you would like to stress because you feel it's important or you think it helps you express what you are trying to express. So this is just scratching the surface. This is a whole part of the language which is not a word or the exact pronunciation of specific sounds. This is about implication and the way people feel when they hear things. It's a whole layer of the language which is very important. And the best way to learn it is to listen to a lot of language and get a feel for it and try it out for yourself, okay? So that's it. If you have any questions, let me know. If you haven't done so, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe and get a free course in the links in the description. All right? All right. So hopefully that's clear on word stress. Word stress is very, very important. Diego, howdy from Colombia. I am watching your podcast. Oh, great. Thank you for joining. Advanced voice mode in ChatGPT, good to practice pronunciation. I need to do more testing, but it's definitely not bad. It's comparable to a lot of other tools out there for sure. I'm not sure to what extent it can hear specific differences between two syllables as opposed to listening to a whole word. But ChatGPT 4.0 is trained on also the sound. It's not just a text model. It's my understanding. It's a multimodal model. Say that 10 times fast. A multimodal model. I love Dr. Seuss. I love Dr. Seuss books. It's so fun to read, and some of them are crazy. This one is pretty simple. You know, the ABC one is pretty simple, but this one, like Fox and Socks, is crazy. And it gives you a warning. Take it slowly. This book is dangerous. Let's see if I can. Fox and Socks. Fox, socks, box, knocks. Knocks in box, fox and socks. So it's transparent. Knocks in box, fox and socks. Knocks on fox, in socks in box. Socks on knocks, and knocks in box. Fox and socks on box, on knocks. There's too much green in these. It's keying out. Chicks with bricks come, chicks with blocks come. Chicks with bricks and blocks and clocks come. Look, sir, Mr. Knox, sir. Let's do tricks with bricks and blocks, sir. Let's do tricks with chicks and clocks, sir. That's insane. I mean, you have to really think about, number one, what does that even mean? But how do I say that? Chicks with bricks come, chicks with blocks come, chicks with bricks and blocks and clocks come. It's so, and it's funny. I mean, just the drawing style is funny, but it's a great way to work on your tongue, your muscle memory. It's a great tool, I think. Reading Dr. Seuss is a great tool for improving your pronunciation in terms of the muscle memory. When you're speaking, you need to have muscle memory. You can't be thinking about sounds as you're speaking because you have too many things to think about. Number one, like, what are you saying? But also, if it's muscle memory, then it's more likely to sound more natural. And by the way, if you have kids, then you have an excuse to read Dr. Seuss. First, I'll make a quick trick brick stack. Then I'll make a quick trick block stack. You can make a quick trick chick stack. You can make a quick trick clock stack. You can make a quick trick chick stack. That's tough to say. It's not easy. And here's a new trick, Mr. Knox. Socks on chicks and chicks on fox. Fox on clocks on bricks and blocks. Bricks on blocks on knocks on box. And it's all visualized. I mean, there it is. Now we come to ticks and talks, sir. Try to say this, Mr. Knox, sir. Clocks on fox tick, clocks on knocks talk. Six, sick, bricks tick, six, sick, chicks talk. That's what it looks like when six, sick, bricks, chick, sick, six, sick, bricks tick, and six, six, chicks, six, sick, six, 6 sick chicks talk. That's crazy. Please, sir, I don't like this trick, sir. My tongue isn't quick or slick, sir. I get all these ticks and talks, sir, mixed up with the chicks and talks. I get all these ticks and clocks, sir, mixed up with the chicks and talks, sir. I can't do it, Mr. Fox, sir. I'm so sorry, Mr. Knox, sir. Here's an easy game to play. Here's an easy thing to say. News socks, two socks, whose socks, Sue's socks. Who sews Sue's? Who sews Sue's? Who sews whose socks? Sue sews Sue's socks. Sue sews Sue's socks. Who sees who sew whose new socks, sir? You see Sue sew Sue's new socks, sir. That's not easy, Mr. Fox, sir. And this is one of my favorite. Who comes? Crow comes. Slow Joe Crow comes. There's Slow Joe Crow. Who sees crows? Who sews crow's clothes? Sue sews crow's clothes. Slow Joe Crow sews whose clothes? Sue's clothes. Sue sews socks of fox in socks now. Slow Joe Crow sews knocks in box now. Obviously. Sue sews rose on Slow Joe Crow's clothes. Fox sews hose on Slow Joe Crow's nose. Hose goes, rose grows. Nose hose goes some. Crow's rose grows some. There's sewing hose on Slow Joe Crow's nose. Mr. Fox, I hate this game, sir. This game makes my tongue quite lame, sir. Mr. Knox, sir. What a shame, sir. This one's also great. There's blue goo. There's blue goo. We'll find something new to do now. Here is lots of new blue goo now. New goo, blue goo, gooey gooey, blue goo, new goo, gluey gluey. Gooey goo for chewy chewing. That's what that goo goose is doing. Do you choose to chew, sir? To, sir? If, sir, you, sir, choose to chew, sir. With the goo goose, chew, sir, do, sir. Mr. Fox, sir, I won't do it. I can't say it. I won't chew it. Very well, sir, step this way. We'll find another game to play. Bim comes, Ben comes. Bim brings Ben broom. Ben brings Bim broom. Ben bends Bim's broom. Bim bends Ben's broom. Bim's bends. Ben's bends. Ben's bent broom breaks. Bim's bent broom breaks. Ben's band, Bim's band. Big bands, pig bands. Bim and Ben lead bands with brooms. Ben's band bangs, and Bim's band booms. Pig band, boom band. Big band, broom band. My poor mouth can't say that, no, sir. My poor mouth is much too slow, sir. Well, then, bring your mouth this way. I'll find it something it can say. Luke, luck, licks, lakes. Luke's duck. Luke, luck, likes lakes. Luke's duck likes lakes. Luke, luck, licks lakes. Luke's duck licks lakes. Duck takes licks in lake Luke Lux likes. Duck takes licks in lakes Luke Luck likes. Luke Luck takes licks in lakes Duck likes. I can't blab such blibber blubber. My tongue isn't made of rubber. Mr. Knox, now, come now. You don't have to be so dumb now. Try to say this, Mr. Knox, please. Through 3 cheese trees, 3 free fleas flew. While these fleas flew, freezy breeze blew. Freezy breeze made these 3 trees freeze. Freezy trees made these trees cheese freeze. That's what made these 3 free fleas sneeze. Stop it, that's enough, sir. I can't say such silly stuff, sir. Very well then, Mr. Knox, sir. Let's have a little talk about Tweedlebeetles. What do you know about Tweedlebeetles? Well, when Tweedlebeetles fight, it's called a Tweedlebeetle battle. And when they battle in a puddle, it's a Tweedlebeetle puddle battle. And when Tweedlebeetles battle with paddles in a puddle, they call it a Tweedlebeetle puddle paddle battle. And when beetles battle beetles in a puddle paddle battle, and the beetle battle puddle is a puddle in a bottle, they call this a Tweedlebeetle bottle puddle paddle battle muddle. And when beetles fight beetles in a bottle with their paddles in the bottles on a poodle and the poodle's eating noodles, they call this a muddle puddle tweedle poodle beetle noodle bottle paddle battle. And now wait a minute, Mr. Fox. When a fox he's now shoving the fox into the bottle. He can't handle it anymore. When a fox is in the bottle where the Tweedlebeetles battle with their paddles on a puddle on a noodle-eating poodle, this is what they call a Tweedlebeetle beetle, noodle, poodle, bottle, paddle, muddled, duddled, fuddled, wuddled, fox in socks, sir. Fox in socks, our game is done, sir. Thank you for a lot of fun, sir. He's over it. He's done. You can't hack it. Anyway, yeah, it's crazy. I wasn't planning to read the whole thing, but I guess I did. All right, let's go to... We're going to look at a scene from A Few Good Men, and we're going to pick out some useful English words and phrases from that before we get into some phrasal verbs. So stick around. Those here live, thank you for joining. If you haven't done so already, I would appreciate if you could hit the like button and subscribe and get a free course in the links in the description. All right. Let's get into the scene. If you haven't seen the movie, it's pretty classic, but we have a lot of language to cover here. So this is a courtroom scene where Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise are kind of on opposite sides, where Jack Nicholson's character stands accused of ordering something called a code red, which ultimately resulted in the death of a Marine. I believe that's what happens. And then the counselor or lawyer, Tom Cruise, is a military counselor or lawyer, and he is basically interrogating the witness, who is played by Jack Nicholas. I always get confused between Jack Nicholas and Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson. Yeah, excuse me. My brain always gets the two mixed up. Jack Nicholas is the golfer. Jack Nicholson is the actor. Right. Okay. All right. So let's get into it.
Thanks, Danny. I love Washington.
Excuse me. I didn't dismiss you.
I beg your pardon?
I beg your pardon? How often do we use this as a phrase to say that we didn't hear something or we didn't catch something? I would say in situations where we want to really stress the fact that we didn't understand, or perhaps in situations that are more formal. And it is usually a more formal way of saying, sorry, what? Or excuse me? Or what did you say? In a normal everyday situation, we'll say, huh? What? Huh? But if we didn't understand the whole thing, or we're shocked by something, I beg your pardon? I beg your pardon? Okay, so this is in a courtroom, so it kind of makes sense, right?
I didn't dismiss you.
I beg your pardon?
I'm not through with my examination. Sit down.
I'm not through with my examination. Not through. So, to be through with something is to be done with it. This is also a little more formal, right? You could say you just finished a book and someone said, "Are you through with that? I'd like to read that after you," and hand that to them. You could say that. But more often in that kind of situation, people will say, "Done." Right? I'm done. Are you done with that? Yeah, I'm done. Are you done with those fries? Yeah, I'm done. You can have the rest. Oh, great, thanks. Are you through with those fries? Not as common, right? But if I say, I'm finally through medical school, right? Or this really helped me get through medical school, it suggests that I'm done with it and it was kind of difficult and challenging. So to get through something is a bit more formal, or to talk about maybe bigger, more challenging things. I'm not through with my examination. So he's examining as part of a cross-examination. I think Colonel Jessup is his name in the movie. And then we're going to hear "address me." So listen to this again.
Danger.
Colonel.
What's that?
Beg your pardon?
I'm not through with my examination. Sit down.
Colonel.
What's that?
I'd appreciate if he would address me as Colonel or Sir. I believe I've earned it.
I would appreciate if you would address me as Sir or Colonel. I believe I've earned it. So he is a colonel. That is his rank in the Marines, and he wants to be addressed that way. Now, again, is this formal? Yes, also more formal, but you can say it in everyday situations, I guess. Please address me as Luke or Your Highness, right? It's how I want people to call me when they're talking to me, right? Please address me as Teacher Luke. No, don't do that. But if I say that, then I want you in the future to call me that. It's a more formal way of saying, please call me. So if you read someone's name and you say, Alexander, please call me Alex. Oh, okay. So now I know that I don't have to say Alexander every time. I can say Alex. Now, could you say, please address me as Alex? Yes, but that does sound pretty formal, and I think call me Alex would be much more common. But when we're talking about titles, when it's a little more formal, right, because we're in a more formal situation, address me is more common.
Defense counsel will address the witness as Colonel or Sir.
The defense counsel will address the witness as Colonel or Sir. So Tom Cruise is playing the defense counsel, and the judge is telling him you have to call him Colonel or Sir.
I don't know what the hell kind of unit you're running here.
And the witness will address this court as Judge or Your Honor.
The witness will address this court as Judge or Your Honor. So he's kind of saying, well, the colonel is basically accusing Tom Cruise of being rude for just saying sit down, instead of saying sit down, sir, or sit down, colonel, addressing him properly. And then he kind of makes a disparaging remark to the court. Look, I don't know what the hell kind of unit you're running here, right? Kind of disparaging or making fun of or criticizing the court, basically saying everyone around here is rude and doesn't respect authority. The judge then turns it around and saying, and you may address me as Your Honor or Judge, basically saying now you're being disrespectful. You need to address me correctly too. It's kind of a turn of phrase. And there's a lot of underneath the surface, a lot of authority and who is in authority. And this whole scene is about following orders and following the rules and showing respect and not showing respect, getting to the truth in spite of, someone's rank or seniority, so that we're kind of in a formal situation, but there's a lot of hierarchy in this situation, making us think about who is where in the hierarchy. It's the judge, it's the colonel, and then it's the counselor. And these three, we have to kind of pay attention to where they fit and how they talk to each other in the scene. It's kind of complicated.
I'm quite certain I've earned it. Take your seat, Colonel.
Take your seat, Colonel. Now, getting back to our discussion about intonation and stress. Listen to how he says that. Take your seat, Colonel. The length of the pause and then Colonel instead of take your seat, Colonel. There's a friendliness to take your seat, Colonel, or even a neutrality to it, just neutral. But if you listen to that, the way he says that, take your seat, Colonel, a long pause, and then an emphasis on Colonel with a falling tone, tells us much more. Hey, I see that you care about respect, but you need to show respect as well. And, you're showing some attitude that isn't appropriate for this courtroom. And I need to kind of put you in your place to let you know that you need to follow the rules of the court and be respectful of this process. He wants to just leave, obviously.
What do you want to discuss now? My favorite color?
Colonel, the 6 a.m. flight was the first one off the base?
Yes.
There wasn't a flight that left 7 hours earlier and landed at Andrews Air Force Base at 2 a.m.?
Lieutenant, I think we've covered this, haven't we?
So this is earlier in the film. We've covered this, haven't we? So this is in reference to a secret flight that they're accusing the kernel of having been involved in, because there's this is all about the death of a Marine because of basically torture from other Marines, bullying and torture from other Marines, called a code red, when they're not performing maybe. And I think he, if I remember correctly, died, and that's what this whole thing is about. And so who ordered the code red? Well, we have to figure out if it was the colonel. Well, there was this mysterious flight that we think happened, but it's not in the flight logs. So he's bringing this up again. The judge is saying, well, we've covered this. We've already talked about this. There wasn't another flight. He's raising the point that we think there is, and we think there is some evidence that the flight happened.
Your Honor, these are the Tower Chief's logs for both Guantanamo.
When you're a little impatient, you don't want to deal with this again because you feel like you've already decided this. Oh, come on. We've covered this already. Why are we rehashing this? Why are we talking about this again? Haven't we already covered this? Come on.
Guantanamo Bay and Andrews Air Force Base. Guantanamo log lists no flight that left at 11 p.m. and the Andrews log lists no flight that landed at 2 a.m. I'd like to admit them as defense exhibits Alpha and Bravo.
Now, in the military, they use Alpha and Bravo for things instead of A and B. But in a typical court drama, you would say, I would like to admit these flight logs as evidence as Exhibit A and Exhibit B. So Exhibit A, if you hear that, Exhibit A is a piece of evidence that is in a courtroom proceeding that needs to be paid attention to, and to enter it as Exhibit A or to enter it into evidence, you are basically saying, now this is officially part of the whole kind of corpus or collection of evidence that we have for this case, and the jury needs to consider it when they hear it, or the judge needs to consider it. If it's not entered as an exhibit as evidence, then they don't consider it, basically. So he says Exhibit Alpha, right? But instead of that, we would usually use A.
Existed.
Oh, we believe it did, sir. Defense will be calling Airman Cecil O'Malley and Airman Anthony Rodriguez. They were working the ground crew at Andrews at 2 a.m. on the 7th.
Your Honor, these men weren't on the list.
Rebuttal witnesses, Your Honor, are called specifically to refute testimony offered under direct examination.
Defense will be calling Airman Cecil O'Malley and Airman Anthony Rodriguez. They were working the ground crew at Andrews at 2 a.m. on the 7th.
Your Honor.
They're working the ground crew, meaning they were actually at the airport, and they would have been witnesses to this flight that's not on the record. And then she says something that I is kind of lawyer speak, and I'm not sure I understand the full thing.
These men weren't on the list.
Rebuttal witnesses, Your Honor, are called specifically to refute testimony offered under direct examination.
Okay, specifically to refute testimony offered under direct examination. All right, let's just say she's giving a legal basis for why they're supposed to be there. Let's say that. And she uses the word refute, and the word refute means to disagree with something somebody else said, right? To go against something somebody else said. I refute that. I disagree with that thing that you just said, and here's why. It's a formal, again, we're in a formal situation. It's lawyer speak here, but people do say this in everyday life. To refute something is to say you disagree, maybe to say why you disagree. I would like to refute the idea that, right?
I'll allow the witnesses.
This is ridiculous.
I will allow the witnesses. Now, I haven't seen this whole movie in a while, but if I remember correctly, the two witnesses actually weren't at the airbase, and this was a kind of scheme by the counsel, Tom Cruise, to make it seem like there were eyewitnesses as a way to convince or a way to persuade or pressure the colonel to admit in court that he ordered this code red, which they're accusing him of doing. Right? If I remember correctly, they weren't actually witnesses. They were just two soldiers that they got but they wanted him to see them there so that he would think, oh, they must know somehow. And so I'll just say it. Maybe. It's been a while.
Colonel, a moment ago...
Check the tower logs, for Christ's sake.
Well, we'll get to the airmen in just a minute, sir. A moment ago, you said that you ordered Lieutenant Kendrick to tell his men that Santiago wasn't to be touched.
That's right.
And Lieutenant Kendrick was clear on what you wanted?
Crystal.
Okay. So they're saying he ordered someone, Lieutenant Kendrick, not to touch Santiago, who is the person who died because of the code red. And he's saying, was Lieutenant Kendrick very clear on that? So if you're clear on something, you understand it. There are no misunderstandings, no ambiguities. And he answers crystal. Anytime somebody answers crystal to the question, are you clear? That means, yes, that is extremely clear. Or yes, he was totally clear on that. There were no misunderstandings. There were no possibilities of misunderstandings. Everything was clear. How clear? Crystal clear. Now, sometimes you will hear people say just crystal, crystal. Or they'll say crystal clear. Are you clear? Yes, crystal. Clear? Crystal clear. Okay. That was you can describe it as, you can use it as an adjective to describe something like an explanation. That was a crystal clear explanation of the word crystal in this context. Thank you for explaining it. Right.
Any chance Lieutenant Kendrick ignored the order?
Ignored the order?
Any chance he forgot about it?
No.
Any chance Lieutenant Kendrick left your office and said, the old man is wrong?
No.
When Lieutenant Kendrick spoke to the platoon and ordered them not to touch Santiago, any chance they ignored him?
You ever served in an infantry unit, son?
No, sir.
An infantry unit would be actually in battle, in a war situation. He's in the military, but he's basically a lawyer in the military, so he has not served. If you hear someone say, have you ever served in the infantry? Have you ever served in battle? Right? Have you ever, sometimes you'll hear people say, have you ever been deployed? Nowadays people use that. But that means to go into a wartime situation where there's actually conflict happening, not just to be a lawyer in a courtroom, but to actually, have a gun and be in danger.
Ever served in a forward area?
No, sir.
Ever put your life in...
I think forward area refers to maybe even not on the front lines with a gun, but in an area that is potentially in danger, I think.
Another man's hands? Asked him to put his life in yours?
No, sir.
We follow orders, son. We follow orders or people die. It's that simple. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Are we clear?
Crystal.
So he's kind of, in this whole scene, you have this interesting back and forth thing where people are, one thing happens and then it comes back right at them. There's an interesting, I think, dynamic being set up there where people are using something that somebody else just said back at them as, I think, a way to show how kind of deep the level of understanding is. And again, this playing with hierarchy and levels of maybe seniority, right, and obedience, listening to who listens to whom, right? So he's saying, am I clear, Crystal? He's basically saying, I'm like the colonel I'm like the, what was his name? I'm like the person you gave the order to, that I understood totally clearly what you just said. You used the word crystal, so I'm using the word crystal kind of to mirror it in an interesting way.
Colonel, I have just one more question before I call Airman O'Malley and Airman Rodriguez. If you gave an order that Santiago wasn't to be touched, and your orders are always followed, then why would Santiago be in danger? Why would it be necessary to transfer him off the base?
Santiago was a substandard Marine.
Substandard. Okay. I think what's happening is he ordered Santiago to be removed because he was in danger, I think, and because he was being bullied by other Marines, and he was substandard. Again, formal language to say basically not good enough, not that good, not up to the standard of quality we expect. Up to a standard, up to the standard means things have to be this good or better. This good is the standard or better, right? If someone says I have very high standards, or I uphold a high standard of work, that means this is the minimum that I'm able to accept. I will do this much or better, no less. If you have very high standards, you accept nothing less than your standards. It can be more, but it cannot be less, right? Uphold a high standard in the quality of my work. I maintain that. I don't let myself do anything lower than that line. If you're lower than that line, what are you? Substandard. The word sub, or the prefix sub, means under. Submarine, subterranean. Under, subjects, the subject of the king. They're under the king, right? So it means under. So substandard means not up to the standard. I don't remember why. Again, it's been a while since I've seen the whole movie.
He was being transferred.
That's not what you said. You said he was being transferred because he was in grave danger.
That's correct.
You said
Grave means very serious danger. Grave danger is more than just danger. He's in danger? He's in grave danger. Very serious.
that's not what you said. You said he was being transferred because he was in grave danger.
That's correct.
You said he was in danger. I said grave danger. You said, is there
I
any
recall what I
I can have
said.
the court reporter read back to you.
I know what I said. I don't have to have it read back to me like I'm...
Why the two orders? Colonel?
Sometimes men take matters into their own hands.
No, sir. You made it clear just a moment ago that you
Sometimes
never...
men take matters into their own hands. So to take matters into your own hands is usually used to talk about going against authority, possibly going against the law. You hear stories about, I don't know, someone somebody loves was killed or kidnapped or something. And instead of following the law and hoping that person gets found by the police and taken into to custody and put in jail, someone took matters into their own hands. Maybe they went out with a gun to try to find and kill that person. The movie's Taken, right? Liam Neeson in Taken has taken matters into his own hands. He's not trying to get the police to do things for him. He's got a gun and he's going to get his daughter back with that gun, right? So he has taken matters into his own hands. In this context, there are orders and everyone should follow the orders. But if someone ignored the orders in a specific situation to handle something, they took matters into their own hands. Often this implies that someone cares so much about something that they're willing to disregard the rules, the law, everything in order to get this thing done. Often they have a feeling of self-righteousness or revenge or a desire to do something at any cost, even if once they do that, they go to jail for breaking the law, right? Sometimes it implies a complete disregard for the rules just because you don't care about them. But most often I would say it implies an intense desire to do this thing no matter what the consequences. If you take matters into your own hands, you don't know what could happen to you after. I don't care, right? So that's how it's usually used. The Marines would maybe disregard the order to not touch Santiago in order to maybe punish him or whatever they're trying to accomplish with Santiago. Basically, maybe make him fall in line, make him not a substandard Marine.
Take matters in their own hands. Your men follow orders or people die. So Santiago shouldn't have been in any danger at all, should he have, Colonel?
You snotty little bastard.
Your Honor.
Okay, so just to explain that, the reason he asked him first if people must follow orders is he wanted him to say, yes, he must. Everyone must. Then he's bringing up a case where supposedly someone didn't follow orders. Well, I thought you said everyone follows orders. What happened? Because he's trying to get him to admit that he ordered it, because people follow orders. So it's kind of a lawyer trick, I guess. And then he's calling him a snotty bastard. Snotty is usually a word you would use to make fun of a child's annoying snotty little kids, right? Snotty meaning there's snot running out of their noses, and snotty little kids, it's not a nice thing to say about them. They're rude, they're disrespectful, they're running around, they don't care what their parents say. Sometimes snotty little brat, you'll hear people say about a kid who's not very well behaved.
I'd like to ask for a recess.
I'd like an answer to the question, Judge.
The court will wait for an answer.
A recess is a
Santiago
break.
shouldn't have been in any danger at all, should he have, Colonel?
You snotty little bastard.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
I'd like an answer to the question, Judge.
The court will wait for an answer.
If Lieutenant Kendrick gave an order that Santiago wasn't to be touched, then why did he have to be transferred? Colonel, Lieutenant Kendrick ordered the code red, didn't he? Because that's what you told Lieutenant Kendrick to do.
Object!
And when it went bad,
That'll be all,
you cut
Counsel.
these guys loose!
Remember we talked about object or subject? Well, object would be the noun. Object would be the verb, right? Remember, same rules apply. Two-syllable word, object, we put object. The verb form, because it's used as a verb, putting the stress in the second syllable. I object, instead of object, which would be the noun form, or sometimes the adjective form.
Your Honor,
You had
Counsel, I'll
Marcus
hold you
inside
in
a phony
contempt.
transport.
Your Honor.
You doctored the logbook.
Damn it,
You
Cappy.
coerced the
Okay, let's go through this. You'll hear him say you doctored the logbooks. He's accusing him of saying, basically, he deleted the record, doctored the logbooks, saying this flight didn't happen. Oops.
Kendrick ordered the code red, didn't he? Because that's
loose. Your Honor,
you had more what you told Lieutenant Kendrick to do.
Object!
And when it went bad,
That'll be
you
all,
cut
Counsel.
these guys loose.
Your Honor,
You had
Counsel, I'll
Marcus
hold you
inside
in
a phony
contempt.
transport.
Your Honor.
You doctored the logbook.
Damn it, Cappy.
You coerced the doctor.
Consider
I'm
yourself in
asking you.
contempt.
Colonel Jessup, did you order the code red?
You
Colonel Jessup, did you order the code red? He's asking him directly if he ordered it. And the other word there was coerced. You coerced them. That is to force somebody to do something under pressure, right? To kind of use any tactics you can to make them do something.
don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled to the logbook.
Damn it, Cappy.
You coerced the doctor.
Consider
I'm
yourself in
asking you.
contempt.
Colonel Jessup, did you order the code red?
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled to.
You want answers?
I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
That's the famous line from this movie. You can't handle the truth. Whatever the truth is, you can't deal with it. It's too profound for you or something like that. I feel like he says, I'm entitled to it. If you're entitled to it, you deserve that. You have the right to have that question answered. And then so it's getting very, very tense.
Answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled to.
You want answers?
I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it? You? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I have a greater responsibility than you can possibly fathom. You weep for Santiago and you curse the Marines. You have that luxury. You have the luxury of not knowing what I know, that Santiago's...
Warrickhorn says, how old was Tom at the time? Can you look that up for me? I don't know. He looks like he's in his early 30s, I would say. Probably 32 would be my guess. Look it up.
Death, while tragic, probably saved lives. And my existence, while grotesque and incomprehensible to you, saves lives.
My existence, well, we're not going to look at any more words. My existence, while grotesque and incomprehensible to you, meaning the military has to do ugly things to protect people, to protect the country. I think it's a valid case. It's a complex thing because he did a thing that caused something to happen, right? And now he's being accused of something, but also he's saying, hey, we in the Marines, we have to do unpleasant and horrible things to preserve people's freedoms and to keep the country safe. And you all are cowards, and you're just worrying about this one guy who died. But the fact that he did is probably necessary, is what he's saying.
You don't want the truth because deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. We use words like honor, code, loyalty. We use these words as the backbone of a life spent defending something. You use them as a punchline. I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom that I provide. And
That's a good line. The man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom I provide. That's very poetic. He's saying, I provide your freedoms, and here you are criticizing me. Here you are dragging me into a courtroom. Here you are asking me these questions. Here you are trying to understand the logic, the difficult decisions, the questionable, grotesque things that the military has to do, right?
and questions the manner in which I provide it. I would rather you just said thank you and went on your way. Otherwise, I suggest you pick up a weapon and stand a post. Either way, I don't give a damn what you think you are entitled to.
Did you order the code red?
I did the job. Did you order the code red? You're goddamn right I did.
So there he just admitted it. So this whole thing has been trying to get him to admit he ordered it. If he ordered it, then he's admitting to a serious crime. And how could we get him to admit something in a courtroom? That would be a crazy thing to accomplish. So this whole thing has been engineered, figured out as a way to get him, to force him to admit that he did order it. It's a really incredible movie, and the whole movie is really well written, and it's just a lot of little subtle things, this hierarchy that's going on in this scene, and the mirroring back and forth of specific phrases. There's so much happening, and the whole movie is like this. It's really well written, and it's an incredible film. And he finally does admit it, not to spoil it, but it's a pretty old movie. So anyway, hopefully some useful phrases there we talked about. I'll just go over them one more time. Beg your pardon. I'm not through, or to be through with something, to complete it. Address me as, a formal way to say call me. We've covered this, meaning we've talked about it already. Exhibit A, Exhibit B in a courtroom. To refute, to disagree with something strongly or to have evidence to go against it. Crystal clear. Substandard, not up to the standard. Take matters into your own hands. Cut them loose. We didn't talk about that. Oops, we missed that one. Oh, we missed one. He says that earlier on. You cut them loose. You got rid of them. Sorry, we missed that one. Entitled. I'm entitled to it. Means I'm worthy of the truth. I should get it. You're obligated to give it to me. And you can't handle the truth, purely as a famous line that you should know and remember, as that is the most. If you mention the name of this movie, A Few Good Men, people will say, you can't handle the truth. Actually, if you talk about Jack Nicholson, if you mention Jack Nicholson, the first thing people think, I think most people, is you can't handle the truth. It's probably the most famous line he has said in his career. That's my opinion. All right, that is it. I think we're going to stop here for today. We'll get to the phrasal verbs again eventually. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you learned some things. Start paying attention to stress, especially in words, in individual syllables, and in whole words and sentences. If you have any questions about that, let me know. Any of the words or phrases we looked at, let me know if you have any questions about those. Good luck as you continue your English learning journey, exploring, watching, listening, reading, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.